So now that's it. It's over. We've done everything.
I think we're done with the episode. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a great episode. Wow, that's one of the best. Yeah. So, do you think if we include this in recording, people go, I just turned this on, but it's ended. What's going on?
Oh, yeah, and then we could just let people figure out that it's a joke.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start. I'm going to start on a 1, on a 2, on a 3. Top of the afternoon to you, Dave.
Our top of the morning. Yeah.
Top of the morning.
The Irish say that. Is that an Irish saying, isn't it? I think.
You would know that better than I would, but it is a morning thing, right? Not an afternoon thing?
Top of the morning. I mean, I'm staying in a town which has a lot of older folk, including me, in this town. And
oh, that's nice. You included yourself.
People do tend to say good morning or good afternoon when they sort of pass you in the street, even if they never met you before. Nice. They tend to say that.
What
which is nice.
How do you tend to feel if someone walks by you who maybe you've seen before or have met before, and they were to walk right by you, look at you but not say hello? What is your typical response to something like that happening, or has that happened to you recently? And how did you respond?
It hasn't happened recently because actually I don't know many people in this town that I came to almost a year ago.
Okay.
I don't know many people. I know a few people, but it's funny that, like, I was coming home from Sydney last night. No, it was about 6 o'clock, I guess. And this 4-wheel drive stopped alongside me, and I was about 50 meters from the RV park, the caravan park, and this guy said to me, "Hop in, I'll give you a lift."
Oh, that's nice. Did he know you?
The guy I get coffee from every morning, Toto.
Oh, it was Toto. Hi, Toto.
He said, "Hop in, I'll give you a lift." I said, "I'm only 50 meters from the park." He said, "It doesn't matter. Do you want a lift?" He was, and it was funny. I said, "Oh, where are you going?" I said, "Oh," he said, "Oh, I forgot to put the milk order in. I've got to go and sort the milk out of the cafe."
Oh, that's sweet.
It was cute. So it's cute. Here I am thinking this guy, because he's such a busy cafe, I was thinking he's got everything so well organized, but he had forgot to order the milk.
Hey, sometimes it's the little things, right?
But I completely avoided your question.
Okay, I'm used to it.
So I can't even remember that happening recently. Yeah, I try to avoid your questions, but because they're so deep. But in China it would happen quite a lot. When I was living in China, because, as you know, we were in this sort of research community, and our office was Starbucks.
Oh, where we would go to work on our computers and have meetings. And
sometimes, people in our team wouldn't say hello or walk past you, and it was often, I think, because they were so much in their own stuff. They're just so upset, or
in their own world, in their own head,
something like that, or thinking about something. They wouldn't say hello.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I used to get a little bit irritated with one woman who we would have we knew each other really well. We go out for dinner like 2 or 3 times a week with the other teammates, and so we knew each other really well. And she would often walk in and not say hello. And one day, I was I don't know, maybe sometimes a little irritated, but just like, oh, what is that about her, And one day, I asked her about it. And she told me. it was incredible what she told me. She said basically she has so many voices in her head all the time that she can't like concentrate and see the world around her or connect with it. It's really difficult. So I guess in a way some people would put a name on that and call it schizophrenia. But and then another guy who was like that, who
yeah, you did talk about that. Yeah.
Who was also in this research community. He was a guy who, I think we talked about it once in this podcast. We swapped shoes.
Wow.
Like we actually did it, and then I realized when I stood in his shoes, he's in a fog. He's like in a cloud around him, and he can't see the outside world. We could label those people as selfish or don't care about other people, but
well, they can't feel it. Yeah, they can't sense the world around them. They can't sense the that there are things happening around them.
They don't have the ability to, because they can't see it or they can't feel it or something.
They can only focus on what they're doing, what they're trying to get. Also, it can come from a lot of anxiety, survival. Yeah, I know some people like that will just straight out look right at you and just walk right past you and not say hi, even after being gone for months and then coming back. And at a time where you would think obviously they would say hi to you because they've been gone for so long, or you've been gone for so long, and yeah, just nothing. And I've investigated a little bit also, and it does seem to come from, at least from what I've seen, it's a little similar to what you just said, that the person's really in their own world, in their own thoughts, and then also, a lot of anxiety. That anxiety makes them just be able to focus on what they're doing in that moment. And do you feel like you're a person who senses your environment? Like, let's just say when you're walking down the street, when you walk into a place, either someone's house or a cafe, do you feel that you're the kind of person who is aware of his environment? How would you say you interact with the environment around you?
Well, now, yes, but before, no, not really. Because as we're having this conversation, I'm trying to remember, like the times when I walked past people, when I was completely cut off from the environment, like didn't notice it at all, was just sort of, especially as a teenager, probably, like in my own thoughts, my own rage, my own anger, with a lot of family stuff and whatever, and didn't see the world around me. And when I saw the world around me, it was sort of like, I think it was, what can I get from that world around me? Well, it was like very self-centered. So, it's like because I think those person who might walk past me, or what you're talking about, like I was that person.
Yeah.
Before. Wow, I feel such sadness.
Why do you feel sad?
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to ask, actually. Sometimes I feel I need someone else to ask me how I am, or yes, it's useful. It's so useful, I think, sometimes to ask someone, what's happening. But I think the sadness is like I can feel the disconnection I had as a younger person, and that it's like the disconnection it's like I'm not so sad for myself. It's like it's very hard to explain, it's very hard to explain emotions sometimes, but it feels like it's a sadness for the situation of the disconnection. It feels like that about what I could not connect with. And it's a fascinating thing because, like, with my girlfriend now, sometimes I say something like, like I say about how I was when I was younger, and how I wasn't a very nice person, or I did things which weren't very good. And she sort of says, well, like, don't beat yourself up because you had to learn through that, or you just couldn't do it at the time, and you can do it now. So it's like, and that's how I sort of see young people now when I see them, like kids or people doing not such good things, and teenagers acting really selfishly. And I think, well, I don't really want to interrupt them. I don't really want to say, oh, you shouldn't do this, because I think in a way they're on their journey. And
Yeah.
yes, it's not
like when you see them doing not such good, like quote unquote good things. What do you mean? Can you give an example?
or like, because I travel on trains a lot, like rushing through a train, like being really noisy, playing loud music next to people, not considering them, not. There's a big thing now. I don't know what it's like in LA, but in Sydney, there's a strange phenomenon started where school kids don't queue anymore. They just barge to the front of the queue and get on the bus. It's really weird. I don't know why it started, but now a lot of people have stopped. Well, some people queue for a bus. There might be like 10 people in the queue, and then some people would just walk in, and I don't know, maybe they're anxious, maybe they're in a rush to get somewhere, I don't know, but the school kids seem to be doing that a lot. And I even felt like, cause one day I noticed a bunch doing that, and I thought of going to their school and just saying to the teachers, oh, did you know this was happening? Sort of thing. Do you want to talk to you? Because I know you can see the school name and thing. And not to blame them, just to like something they could discuss with the kids or something like that. But actually, I spoke to my girlfriend about it, and she said schools do not like people doing that because they have so much pride in schools that the teachers think they're doing a good job, or they're very anxious or self-defensive, that they don't normally like outsiders giving feedback on their kids, sort of thing. You can give them praise,
yeah,
but she said that from her experience, often, especially the very expensive private schools who really have maybe there's a lot of pride with the teachers and things, but I don't know. It's like I could understand her viewpoint, but you never know. I could do it as an experiment. I could go along to a school and just do it as an experiment, because you never know who you're going to bump into. You might bump into a teacher or a, vice principal that says, wow, I'm so glad you said that, or, something like that.
So what would you bring up to them?
I would say, look, I just seen this behavior, but I just sort of let you know, in case you want to talk about it with the kids or something like that. Because, we might assume that, like, when I was at school, which was a long time ago, like 60 years ago. So when I was at school, I was a teenager. It would be 55 years ago. We weren't really taught ethics. We weren't taught about life. There was no like life lesson. But I went on a website recently, and I don't know how I got there. It was just an accident. It was the community jobs, or the volunteer jobs in this area where I'm staying. And one of them was teaching ethics or discussing ethics in schools. You go to a school and you discuss ethics with teenagers.
Yeah.
That never existed when I was at school.
Yeah.
You would learn ethics maybe through poetry or through Shakespeare or lessons of history, bad things people have done in history and what were the repercussions, and you learn it like in a not direct way. No one would say to you, like, how do you live an ethical life, or what is ethics, or what is moral? So I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I've paused because I'm curious about what your experiences are, if you want to share something.
Yeah.
I'm curious about you. Like, oh, I want to.
Thanks. Well, it's interesting that you brought up what you brought up today, in particular, because today at work we had something called a school program, where fifth graders from different schools will come to the observatory, to the museum, and get to visit the museum for 3 hours before it opens to the public. Yeah, so it's a program that they put in place since they opened in 1935, which is just amazing. It's been going for 90 years in the city of Los Angeles, and so it's really interesting because the diversity of kids that come is really, really interesting every time. Sometimes you have schools where the teachers are like, have this beautiful relationship with the kids, and they don't even really need to say anything to them. The kids just really respect them, and so they're really considerate, and they say thank you and you're welcome, and they're just they're very present. They pay attention to the talks and everything. And then you have, like the group that I had today, it was maybe I don't know, there was one school, there were maybe three classes, let's say 28 kids per class, so we had a total of like 60 students, and they were really, not all of them, but many of them were really they were being rowdy. They wanted to talk a lot, and they kept putting their feet on the seats in the theaters, and had to ask them to put their feet down and all that, thinking that that's normal behavior, that's just totally normal, and I can't tell you how many times I've been to a movie theater, like a nice movie theater, and people have their feet right on top of the seat in front of them. Even when sometimes a person is in the seat in front of them, which always kind of like surprises me. But basically, there's someone, we can go in circles about this, but the bottom line is that I think that when we're younger, we emulate a lot of what we see. We're kind of in like mimicking mode. Isn't that Darwin who talked about that? The selfish gene. He wrote a whole book on that. And there was a whole part in there about how the human being mimics. It mimics behavior, mimics language. And I thought a lot of the way that many of us live today is basically based on what we are emulating from what we saw growing up, what we see in society today, getting in the line to buy our food, paying our taxes, paying our bills on time, showing up to work on time, making sure your car has enough gas, and just, I think just everything that we do is just very much based on what we think is the way to be. What we have been seeing is the way to be in the world. And that seems to come a lot from mimicry. Where else would it come from?
Well, that's so interesting, because like when you say this, I'm thinking that, how can I put it? This is just a thought. Like, in a way, childhood is quite selfish. Like when you're a little baby, you scream so you can get fed and blah blah blah, and you don't like what you do, the tantrums and things like that. So we sort of, I don't know, like.
You mean like we're born into it? We're born into selfishness? Is that what you mean by that?
We're born into, yeah. Well, and it's sort of like encouraged, I think, at the beginning, and then maybe life is a gradual realization that shit, there are people around me, you know, like, and I think we get some hard lessons because I think it took me I had a situation when I was working in business, working in a company where I was like, it went really well for a while. Like I was getting promoted and people thought I was a hot shot and stuff like that. And then one day, this wise man, you know, he was he had an HR, human resources background, so he understood people, relationships like that. And he said, like, why are we promoting Dave? Like, why are we promoting him? Because his interpersonal skills are not good. You know, like, he's not good with people. You know, and it's like this. I heard, either he told me directly or I heard it through my boss. Like, this guy's questioning why we're promoting you. And I actually wasn't that angry with this guy. I felt like, yeah, he's right. Thank God someone said it, because I couldn't say it. I couldn't fess up that I was like completely lost with interpersonal stuff. I didn't know how to manage people, but I was in the position of managing people, you know, just because I was a smart ass or could make profits or, you know, good for making money in the company. Yeah. And I would just like to say that when we talk about teachers, wow, I look at the job of a teacher and I think that is such a hard job. Oh, wow. I think it's one of the hardest jobs and maybe one of the most criticized jobs, because people tend to criticize teachers.
Thankless.
Thankless. But I had a situation. I like going to art galleries, and I used to, when I lived in Sydney years ago in about 2011, I used to take the bus into the city, just to sit in the cafe in an art gallery for a couple of hours and just work. I loved working there. But I was in this art gallery. It's a modern art gallery, beautiful art gallery, spacious and fantastic. What type of place I like. They use space as part of the feeling, I think. And it was a school. There's so many schools go there, so there was a school there, like you're talking about at the observatory. And I was just observing them and noticing them, and there were about 4 of them sitting on a bench, and I was close to them, and I think there were 3 guys and a girl, and the girl, like, it was a uniform school, so they had uniforms on. They're probably about 16, but she was so interesting because her shirt was completely undone, and you could just see her bra, and she had like her boobs were sort of, they weren't hanging out, but they were just so obvious. She had a mini skirt on, so you could, I don't know, you could see her ass, but you almost could see her ass maybe, you know, and she had funny coloured hair and everything like that. She was like pretty and whatever. And I said to this guy, I don't know, I honed on a guy. I thought, this guy, he looks sensible, you know. So I went over and I said, how come she's dressed like this? I actually asked him, and he said, oh, the teachers gave up with her. Like I think they put her in detention 5 times and they just gave up, you know. And he just laughed. He said, and then we started talking. And my God, there were these 2 boys I talked to. They were so interesting. They were talking about their feelings about life and about the art and what they're learning at school. It was like they were so much more advanced than me. You know, I felt like I was the kid. You know, they were like wise 16-year-olds. And I said to them, what school do you go to? And they said, we go to the, I think it was art and music school in Newtown. And in Newtown in Sydney is a very sort of avant-garde suburb. You know, a lot of gays, a lot of artistic things. It's out there. So it's a perfect place for that sort of school. Right. So I was so impressed. It's so funny. I said, oh, are your teachers here? And they said, oh yeah, they're upstairs, I think. I said, oh yeah, I'd like to say hello to them. So I went upstairs. I don't know why. There were quite a few people, like there got to be like 40 people in this foyer, but somehow I knew those are the teachers. I don't know how I worked it out. So there were two ladies. It's really weird I say this now because I don't even know how I knew those were the teachers. So I walked over to them, and one of them was quite modestly dressed, and the other one was dressed a bit like that girl I'm describing. She was like completely out there with her dress. She had multicolored hair, earrings going everywhere, tats, the whole thing. And I said, wow, I just met 4 of your kids, your school kids. I said, I was so impressed, like the conversation. So, and the girl, by the way, the girl who was dressed, like I described, she joined in the conversation as well. She was really wise, my God. If it had been like not 5 months ago, I could have remembered what we talked about, but it was a wonderful conversation. And I said, well, congratulations, you've done a great job with these kids. And they deflected it. They said, oh, no, it's the kids. we just do it, but they're just a great bunch of kids. I thought, wow, that's really good. You gave that answer. So it's like in young people or in teachers and whatever, there's a whole kaleidoscope. It's like a microcosm of life, I guess. You get so many different.
Yeah. It really is. Just the whole concept of school. I don't know. Maybe don't even get me started on this. That the fact that human beings are still being forced to sit in a classroom at a desk and to listen to one person talk to them and tell them what life is about and tell them what they should be learning and how they should be learning it is so completely absurd that I don't have words for it. Sometimes it just seems so like prehistoric. There's a part of me that feels in some way shocked that it's still being practiced with the amount of wisdom that we could have by now at this time in evolution. But on the other hand, I go, okay, this is just where we're still at. This is just where we're at this stage of evolution. This is just where we're at, Marilyn. It's okay. And there are people who little by little will start to say no to it. Younger and younger kids I'm hearing are now saying to their parents, like, no, I'm not going to go to high school. I'm not going to go to that class and sit and just be told how to live my life, how to listen, what to listen to, what to learn, what not to learn. I'm not doing that. And then, maybe there's more parents that are more conscious and more aware, and they're either doing homeschooling or they're putting their children into more artistic classes from the time that they're younger, and not going through that whole system that tells you that you need to go to kindergarten, then grade school, then junior high, then high school, college, university, all of that. So I feel like people are growing out of that. The masses not yet, but I am hearing of quite a few people that are starting to go another route because it just doesn't make sense anymore. It just doesn't make sense to learn things that are not, I wouldn't say that they're not useful. Of course, math is useful, biology is useful, all of these things, but the way they're being taught is so narrow, and so not relatable to the things that we actually really do tangibly experience in this life when we become adults,
Well, I do hear that there's a view that, kids are very creative, but once they go to school, the creativity sort of knocked out of them and this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's being said more and more, yeah.
But, it may depend on privilege because I can't say for sure, but it's just an experience I had. Recently I went to Grandparents' Day at my kids' school. At my grandkids' school. Sorry, I feel like they're my kids. my grandkids. So I went to their school, and I went with a bit of hesitation, reticence, a bit like you're saying. I was very keen to go because they wanted me to come. So me and my ex-wife, we went together, sort of thing. And because we we get on as friends now, which is lucky, me and my ex-wife. But also we both feel it's good for the family that we're friendly, sort of. Yeah. So, so what's the thing? Yeah, we went to this stuff. There were we were in a big auditorium with stacks of grandparents and aunts and whatever, uncles and things. And but I think the thing was there were no parents there. Just it was other relations. So most of the people had grey hair, except for the kids. And there were some performances, music, singing, this sort of stuff. So it's what the school can do. But what got me was when we went to the classroom. But I'm not sure if I told you this already on a podcast, but because I can't remember it's hard to remember what we've talked about. But there were two things they did. Well, they did a lot of things when we went to the classroom, but the two things. The first thing was I sat with one of my grandkids, she's 9, and together we had to work on a quiz together. So we were given 20 questions, and my God, the questions were amazing. So here's one for you. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm being naughty. Why is Pluto no longer considered to be a planet?
First of all, the size, I think.
Pretty good.
And that it is not actually orbiting our sun.
Oh.
I think is it outside of the elliptical belt?
Could be. God, you know a lot from being at the observatory. The answer that my grandkid gave, and was actually deemed as correct, was it can't clear its neighborhood. So I what that means, it's weird, isn't it? So when
it can't tell me, yeah, I've heard that. No, I've heard it. Go ahead.
So when a planet's a certain size, the gravity, it will suck the things around it, gravity down to its surface to be destroyed or something. So its neighborhood is clear of objects. So comets or whatever, meteorites and things, they come from a long way away. They don't come from round Earth. So, but Pluto can't do that. It's got stuff still around it, like debris or whatever, something like that. So, and also questions what did the 20,000 years ago, what was being traded between Indonesia and Northern Australia? What objects? I don't know. I have no idea. And then they would ask questions like, in this phrase, what is the right word to use? And they give it different words and things like that. So I was really impressed. And then I looked around, and then she took me on a tour of the classroom. So there are all these spots around the classroom, but what I realized is they were trying to teach the kids in different ways. So they talk about, I don't know, the history of Helsinki or something. Then they'd have to draw it, or they'd have to write a poem about it, or there's something else. Or they'd have to do something phonetically. So it's they use different senses in the kids to teach them about something from different angles. I was really getting impressed. And then wow. But there's a kicker to this one. And then, for instance, because I went to another class with my other grandkid, and then her job was to interview me. What was my school like?
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Wow. So it really was quite deep, actually, because the questions it was did you enjoy it? What are your main memories? How did you relax after school? Things it was very interesting questions, and apparently the kids had come up with the questions and things like that. So, wow, I was so impressed. And, but then my ex-wife, she asked, when I caught up for a coffee a few days later, she filled me in a bit because she said, "Oh, what did you think of the classroom and all the facilities?" I said, "Oh, they were fantastic. You know, in the classroom it was so interesting and all this stuff." And there were all these different stations where the kids did different things. And she said, "Yeah, you know." So our younger daughter, she's recently become a primary school teacher, teaching about 11-year-olds. And my ex-wife told me, "Wow, if you go to her school, the classroom is half the size for the same number of kids, and there are none of these facilities. In fact, to have these sort of tools and things, my daughter has bought them herself because the school can't afford it."
Yeah, well, a lot of parents do that. A lot of teachers do that. A lot of teachers buy supplies for their classes. This is very common.
Wow. So it's like there's a privilege thing here.
Okay, can I give another angle on this? You don't need money to be creative. You know, all the things that you just explained to me, that was at the school of your grandkids who, you know, go to maybe a little bit more privileged school. All those things you mentioned didn't come from money. You know, giving them those creative exercises to do. That wasn't about money. That was about creativity. That was about, innovating things or wording things or structuring things in a way that would get them to use their mind more in a more flexible way. So I understand what you're saying. Of course, financial class is a big deal in the education system. It's being talked about a lot. But I from what I'm seeing, I cannot say I don't go to a school anymore. I'm not involved in schools, but just from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing from the outside is that it has a lot to do with the basic structure of school, of how to teach a human being certain things. They're trying to put in different ways of teaching kids, but the basic foundational structure of education seems to still be very, very, how do you say, I don't want to say ancient, but it's not taking into consideration fully yet that basically school should really only be teaching things that are directly related to your lifespan, like the things that are really going to help you to be a human being. I'm talking about learning about your emotions, learning about how your mind works, learning about how to navigate unpredictable situations, how to navigate fear, how to understand your body, learning everything about anatomy, how your organs work with one another, how the way we think is a reflection of what's going on inside of our cells. Where does the information in our cells come from? How is that related to our ancestors? Why is it important for us to understand how our ancestors lived? And is that still relevant to today, to how we live today? Just like there's just such a wealth of information that could be implemented into the schooling system, into the curriculum, that would just enrich our experience as a human being while we're here, I feel. And I think there are many schools. That's where charter schools have been developed, where they're trying to put more, from what I heard, real life practical curriculum, in there. And there's a lot of independent schools that are trying to get, developed now to do more of that. But do you see what I mean? Like I said, I could be totally off, but just from the 3 or 4 schools I've been to in the last 3-4 years, that I've either visited a friend's kid or visited a school for some reason or another, and I saw what was being taught, I just was still kind of almost taken back. And especially when I heard how I was a little bit taken back when I saw what was being taught, but it was especially what I paid attention to the most, or I pay attention to the most when I go to schools, is to see how the kids are do they seem happy? Do they seem stressed? Do they do they enjoy doing their homework? Like, that's a big one. If a kid is enjoying what they're learning, they're going to enjoy doing their homework because they're going to be excited about it. But
yeah, it's fascinating because I agree with you about creativity, because like that sort of stuff and thinking, because you don't need resources much for that. In fact, I've seen videos on YouTube of very clever people who have shown that some of the greatest inventions in this world or things happened where the person who came up with it had no resources, but they had a problem. So how do we solve this problem? They don't need a fancy lab, or they don't need to be at Harvard or Cambridge University to invent something. Often it was like, it's just their thinking. And I used to read the Harvard Business Review when I was working in business. And it's interesting because this magazine, this is called the Harvard Business Review from Harvard University, it's not really about business, this is about life. But I think it was originally called the Harvard Business Review, but it became a journal about life. I don't know if it's still published. But there was a famous article published many, many years ago where someone had researched, they'd done research where they'd asked people who were about 45 years old, now looking back to your school, who was the teacher had the most influence on you? And you wouldn't be surprised, in a way, that basically out of this research they found the answers tended to be the teacher who got them to think, the teacher who got them to think about their life, who they were, that sort of stuff. So then the research was amazing. They went back. So they got the names of these teachers. They went back and they found out what happened to these teachers in their careers. So basically, they tended not to have a good career. Some of them got the sack, all this sort of stuff, because they seemed not to produce good academic results. Because teaching someone how to think about life doesn't get you through like a math test or a, biology test or something like that. So it's very fascinating. And I think if I look back at my school, which I really didn't enjoy, it was those teachers who either questioned life, so it's more like of the English teacher or something like that, because they were looking at, why did Shakespeare say this? Why did Chaucer say that? Why did Socrates say this? That sort of stuff. But the other teachers would be the chemistry teacher who loved chemistry. He loved it. It's like he would see beauty in chemistry, so I got to learn about passion through him, in a way, but a pure passion, like through his heart, which sounds strange. And also the music teacher, who was a crazy Welshman. Like, I think he was had been a sort of composer or something, that he would put on Beethoven on this old record player. This is back in the mid-60s. And we'd be sitting in his office or something. There'd be 15 of us. So you got these prepubescent kids, about 12, listening to Beethoven. And none of us wanted to be there. We wanted to be out in the playing fields mucking around. And then when we didn't pay attention, he would bang the table. Listen to this, boy. This is Beethoven. This sort of stuff. It's so that, or how dare you disrespect Beethoven like this? And it's strange because I became to love classical music and love Beethoven. or whatever. I went through a period in my teenage years, up to about when I was 25, of loving classical music. So I think these people, these teachers, had the guts to say what they loved, in a way. Whether it was, whatever it is, it could be it's like, and the other teacher I think of, his name was Mr. Pether. He was like the weakest, most effeminate, I don't know, he wasn't like a tough guy, but everyone paid attention to him because he taught maths. It's like he loved, every number. And he would get to a blackboard and he would draw a huge circle on the blackboard to explain something. But when he drew the circle was perfect. And as the chalk came round to join up, to where he started, it fitted perfectly. Like, how did he do that? It's like his mastery over chalk or a blackboard, was something to admire. So yeah. So I think what's touching me is the passion.
Well, they just loved what they taught. And they wanted to pass it on.
Yeah, because they taught from their heart.
Is there a reason this makes you feel so emotional to talk about?
Yeah, it's hard to analyze. It's like, I think it's because it feels like it's a form of love. It's like, say, the maths teacher, he's given the gift of being good at maths, so he appreciates that, and he loves it, he adores it, and he wants to share that. He's not bored. It's like, so those are the teachers that the kids would be quiet with and they'd pay attention. The teachers who were just going through the motions, that's the classrooms that was like mayhem and no one was paying attention and people got put into detention and things like that. So they were teaching us, in a way, appreciation and love for life. And I think when you talk about homeschooling and things like that, I don't want to take, I wouldn't even attempt it. I think it's incredible that people do that. Yet, even though I really hated school mainly, because I was such a angry, mixed up kid, I couldn't get on with the other kids, even the teachers. It's like I appreciate going there because it's like, it was like a way, it was like a laboratory of life. Like, could I get on? Could I learn relationships? Could I, be a teammate in a soccer team or whatever? It's like being with people. You're forced to be with people and going to school in a way. And I felt like asking you, actually, because in a way we were in like a people lab when we were in China. We went to an institute that very much said, look, we're going to research humans by you guys being together in a community. And because most communities, or often with communities, they fall apart or they have huge divisions and arguments and things. But as we know in China, what this institute was doing, okay, they were not shying away from the arguments. They're saying, okay, have the argument, but let's then analyze it. How did it happen? Get back to the root of it and analyze it and see, like, from your character, why did this happen? And how could you maybe learn something and adjust your character so it could be done differently in future and you could live more harmoniously, as a group. So I was thinking, as you were saying, homeschooling, I was thinking, well, we went to this sort of like, this sort of human lab in China, where we knew what we were doing. We knew that it was being studied about how we'd interact with each other. And across all these different peoples, like Chinese, Greek, French, US, Australian, British, whatever, Argentinian, all these different cultures, all the different ways of communicating and beliefs and things. Wow, and different age groups, young people, older people. Oh my God! And even in China, you can't say they're just Chinese because each province has its different cultures and things. So it's like a microcosm. So I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is like, what's it like now we're out of that lab into the normal lab of life, just life. There's a difference because there's a pressure when we're together in China or maybe when we're at school that you don't get so much maybe in our lives now. It's different. So maybe the school does have a microcosm like of having to get on with people,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Hey, we're just going to take a little break and we'll be back very shortly. Thanks.
I mean, I'm just always amazed at how, like, the most primordial things in life are not being given, like, the most utmost attention. It's just so interesting. It's quite fascinating, actually, if you think about it. You know, that there's just so little that's known about water. Water, which is basically, without water, there would be no life. Or how little we know about the sun. And the sun is what, you know, creates photosynthesis, which gives life, which, you know, feeds the plants and then feeds us. And it's just, and then feeds the gives us oxygen to breathe. And it's just like these primordial things that you would think would be the most important things for us to have just total knowledge about by now.
Yeah.
Total knowledge. And I mean, it's incredible. Just even, you know, the woman I came across that I passed on to you last year, Veda Austin, who's been doing this research on her own, that she's now, you know, written books and she gives talks all around the world now, and she talks at all these conferences. And basically she's just been doing this research of like proving or showing, which has been done many, many years ago by other scientists, by the way. But for some reason it wasn't, you know, followed through or passed on in schools. But, you know, where she puts a word under a petri dish of water and then she will freeze it in the freezer for 30 seconds or so. She has a technique with, you know, she's done so much trial and error. She knows exactly the amount of time to freeze the water. And then basically the water has in the number or the word that was underneath the petri dish shows in the crystallized water. It shows itself, the number or the word, you know, or she might put the word bird and then the water will freeze in the petri dish and it'll show an image of a bird. That means the intelligence of water is way beyond our understanding. And it's I love that there's now, you know, there's water conferences. There was a water conference, remember, not too long ago in Portugal, and it happens every year. And there's conferences where entire generations of scientists are spending their entire lifetime studying water, studying the mechanism of water.
Yeah. Yeah, I met a guy on LinkedIn, strangely enough, from Iran. And I don't think he's a researcher also into water, and I don't think he has enough money to continue his research, and I don't think he's got the right position at the university or something, so he couldn't continue it. But he had a hypothesis. You know, some people like Veda Austin or other people think that water can carry memory, can carry records and things from the past, and these can be accessed or in different ways. He was looking at. He lived in quite an ancient city in Iran. And this ancient city had a really interesting irrigation system. You know, built maybe, I don't know, 3,000 years ago. and he was studying this irrigation system, and he came up with this hypothesis that the water had some connection with time. I can't remember what it was. It was like, and he explained it to me, and I thought, wow, that sounds very credible. So I guess the thing is, so many people as you say, are looking into it, and we're now finding out there's huge amounts of water in space that we didn't know, and some people.
Water is all over space. It's in the atmosphere.
Yeah, but in like deep space, people have found like clouds of huge amounts of water. Like they only thought it was on planets, but actually exists like away from a planet. And I love this idea that, like, you get a glass of water, say. You get a glass. So, like, I'm drinking this glass of water here. So, how old is this water? And if you think of the Earth and the history of the Earth, who has drunk this water before and then peed it out? You know, was it a whale? Was it a Greek philosopher from 3,000 years ago? So all the water we're consuming has been through all the beings of the Earth and excreted and back into the oceans and all mixed up. So, like, if Vader Austin is looking at like this water and it can actually hold the memory of something or show us a symbol that's beneath it, what other memories are in the water from ancient times or from other planets or from deep space?
Yeah. Well, they believe, they think that a large part of the water on Earth came from comets that crashed into Earth.
Oh yeah.
And brought the oceans that we have today. They're still trying to figure that out, but yeah, it really is just so fascinating to think about the amount of things that we don't know anything about. We're so clueless. We're just barely beginning to understand things. And it just makes sense in a way that there were past civilizations, whoever's listening to this might be the first time they hear this, and maybe some people have heard this many times, but there are all these so-called civilizations, not so-called because they have so much information on Atlantis, the beings of the civilization called Atlantis and the Lemurians, and these civilizations that basically were just like us, where they were human, they evolved. They got to a certain point where their technology became very advanced. There, of course, were power wars, There were class wars, and the environment was affected, and then, these civilizations came to an end for one reason or another. And also these civilizations that just so many historians now have done so many studies on Mars, basically proving that, billions of years ago, there was definitely a civilization of human beings living on Mars that had, bigger oceans than the ones on Earth. So all these past civilizations evolved, got to a kind of like climactic point in technology, intelligence, and everything, and then they disappeared. So it's interesting to think about, where are we at right now? Because on some level we're advancing, in some areas we're just so advanced. Even when I just look at a bridge, when I just look at the beautiful bridge like in Hong Kong or in San Francisco or bridges all over the world, if you look at the architecture and the structure and the workmanship and these massive bridges that are suspended in between the mountains, the intelligence that it takes to build this, and then to think that we're like interpersonal wars in people's homes, and in different countries and nations. And it's so interesting to think about all these, what would you call that? What would you call that? These things that are just so...
Creativity?
Well, no, they're just contradicting.
Oh, contradiction.
Okay, just all the contradictions of like having all this intelligence, so-called intelligence and wisdom. And then...
But they might be connected.
Yeah. Well, it's all connected. We know that, right?
You can watch a film called, what was it? Have you ever seen the film The Imitation Game?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one, because it's like, what's the one? So they, in the Second World War, the Germans had this encryption machine where they could then send messages by radio, but even though the British or the Americans could pick up the radio and listen to it, they didn't have a clue what the Germans were communicating, because it was all encrypted, and every day it was all reset, and like if they worked out the code, the whole codes were then changed for the next day, so it didn't help them.
Yeah.
So this group of people were tasked in the UK with coming up with, can you solve this? Because if we can solve it, we could win the war, because we'll know what the Germans are doing.
Yeah, to decode the code. The
code, yeah. And it was actually the birth, in a way, of the computer. It sort of was birthed.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is when you watch the movie. Well, the point is when you watch the movie, they have so many arguments in the team. They have so many disagreements. You add all these disagreements, they crack the code. They come up with something.
Yeah.
And I imagine that, like people who built bridges and things like that, it came out of great, difficulties, like bridges fell down, or, your idea is rubbish, and no, it isn't, and all this sort of stuff. But out of that comes some creativity. I can't explain it, but I think these things are linked. So it's a bit like what we said we were talking about in our last podcast, was about you don't need a lot of money to be creative. You don't need to go to a fancy school or universities and things, because if you look at the great creations of the world, they came out of scarcity. Like, oh, there's a problem here. Like, what can we make out of this? Out of nothing, because we need to survive. We need to keep going. So out of nothing, we make something.
Yeah.
So it's not money. So there's this thing where out of adversity comes creation, or something like that.
Oh, definitely. And I guess, out of adversity comes the creation of something that people feel will help them to have a better life. Like building roads, If the roads are better, people can get further. If they can get further, they can get better work. If they can get better work, they can feed their families. And maybe it just started in that very primitive, basic needs. And now it's taken on a whole other meaning now. Yeah, I guess we were talking about that, about education and what is, you were talking about that, you became quite emotional when you were, thinking back at the teachers that had the biggest effect on you, right?
Yeah, their passion, yeah.
And because you felt their passion, and you really felt that they wanted to pass on something that they had understood, that they really felt in their heart would be useful to others.
Yeah.
So, that is a gift. It really is a gift. It's like, I just think about, when you think about people, or when we meet people who really, there's no doubt that they are following their calling. You just feel it. You feel it in what they're doing.
That's lovely.
And you have no doubt in your mind that this is who they really are. Like what they're passing on to you, the care, the understanding, or the patience. It's because for them, it's just like breathing. They have to do it. As long as they're here, they're going to do this. you know? And when we meet people like that, it's I think it's beyond inspiring, actually. Inspiration is not even a word to describe it. It I don't, well, how would you put it? When you meet someone like that,
Well,
who you just feel is doing what they were called to do. They're doing exactly what they were meant to be doing while they were here.
Well, it happened the other day.
Yeah?
silly.
It's like, and it's a typical story about myself because I make a lot of assumptions. That's one of my problems, I think. So you know, in the town where I'm living, there is this selection of cafes I can go to. So some I've written off. I don't like that place, I don't go back, you know, this sort of thing. But the ones I like and things like that. But I go to this place because it's. I often go in the afternoon because it's very spacious and it gives a calm feeling. But the staff are quite serious, you know. They don't smile that much and that sort of thing. So I wonder about it a bit. And so the other day was so funny. This woman who she's quite new there, but you know they all do a really good job. But they look very serious and they don't smile much. And I'm thinking this woman, you know, like, is she okay, or she looks a bit grumpy, you know, and blah blah blah. So the other day I was leaving you a recording actually in this cafe, but they had music, you know, very nice music. It's like quite soulful or jazzy and slow, very good music downstairs. And it, you know, the microphone on my phone picks everything up. So I went upstairs and hid near the toilets to make a recording to send to you. And she brought my coffee out while I was upstairs, so I bumped into her on the way down. And I sort of wanted to explain, oh, sorry, you know, I was upstairs making a recording because of the speakers. And she said, yeah, we have really good speakers here, really high standard. And I thought, like, she's only been here, like, in the cafe 2 months. And I thought, that's interesting, because she seemed to be so, in a very nice way, saying we have a good standard here, you know. And then she said, somehow the conversation went to the food. She said, the food here, yeah, we try and do a very sort of, we're trying to do a high standard European style food here. I said, oh really? I didn't know that. You know, like it was just normal food to me. She says, and I said, oh, where are you from? She said, oh, I'm from Italy. She says, I'm from Venice. And then I said, actually, I had breakfast here the other day for the first time with my girlfriend, and I really liked it. She said, and I said, I didn't do a Google review for you, but I want to do one. She said, oh, that'd be great if you can do one, because it really helps us and all this sort of stuff. So the point is that I completely misjudged her. She wasn't like grumpy. She's conscientious. She was really concentrating on her job. And like I said to her, look, I want to apologize to you because I thought that you weren't so happy and because you don't smile much and things like that. But now I realize how conscientious you are about your job. And she said, actually, it's good feedback because we are conscientious here, but we actually do need to smile more. She said it was quite funny.
Nice.
But I felt really bad because, and this woman, like, who had just arrived, you know, she was on some sort of migrant visa, I think. You can get these visas and come and work in Australia for a year or something. She was so keen at her job and doing such a great job. I was like, wow. And this made me so happy to feel that in her. It was wonderful, actually.
Nice.
Because she seemed very happy to be doing that job as well.
Yeah. I mean, I work with a few people that take what they do so seriously. Like they really, and they'll smile and talk to you know, they won't be super serious, but what I mean is they take what they do very seriously, you know? When they show up, you know?
Yeah.
They take every single interaction Every feedback they get, they take it to heart and take it seriously. And I think it's meaningful. Like you just said, it can be very meaningful when you see someone who really cares about what they're doing. Now, of course, we have to be careful not to go overboard, because this was one of my shortcomings that I had for a very long time. I'm working on it still, and I think I might be doing a little bit better. I'm not sure, but I used to care so much about things that I would get very serious about it. And if things didn't go the way I thought they should go, then I would get negative and judgmental. And I think I was right to do this, to feel this way, because I, quote unquote, cared.
Yeah.
Really having to look at that trait, because if you care, and your intention is to care for others, and it's not about getting praise or getting recognition, anything. It's, the intention is not to get anything back. You're just there to serve. You're really just there to serve and make others happy. Then that's wonderful. But if there is a type of care, but with an intention of wanting people to give you praise, feedback, agree with you, that turns into a whole other situation.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it really has a lot to do with our intention.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Yeah, because what I'm thinking is that, I think I'm shifting a bit with this, because I might say, okay, hey, before, like you're saying, I think there was a right way of doing something, so I would maybe try and promote Michael's right way of doing something, or make sure everything's done properly. But what does that do for the relationship with people? So I think because since I got back to Australia last year, I've been, for whatever reason, I started getting interested in this word coherence. Yeah, togetherness, this sort of stuff. And ChatGTP gave me a great analogy of togetherness or coherence. It's like they just gave me the analogy of a tapestry. That's right. So the tapestry, like in a tapestry, if you think there are lots of different colours, lots of different threads maybe, but together it makes a fantastic picture. Something like that. So it's like in the tapestry, it's like all the different colours are like the different viewpoints of people. It could be, that's like a metaphor for it. But the beauty of life is, can you weave those viewpoints together so you make something beautiful?
Yeah. Because
if you force everyone to have your viewpoint, you just have maybe a green rug. But you don't, one colour, but you don't have a beautiful tapestry. So I started to think about, okay, you can have almost like an opposite view to me, but that's fine. I'm not going to try and convince you. I'm just going to try and understand your point of view, and we can both have completely different points of view of the same subject. And in fact, because every single being apparently in this universe is unique, I heard that every being's going to have a different viewpoint, so just get used to it in a way. But it's difficult because we seem programmed to try and convince people that our way is the best way.
Do you remember in one of the discussions that we had with David when we were at Picer in China? I think we were in China and we were having a discussion.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that, about how we often try to get people to side with us, to agree with us. And then we were talking about something like black, how it was related to maybe a black hole, how the black hole wants to suck everything.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Because to be like, it wants everything to be a part of the whole, about a part of itself. Something like that.
I think he said that people who have very, I mean, the expression is strong egos or big egos or something like that. They're actually like a black hole.
Mm.
They're sucking everything in, and to be like them, in a way. So I think maybe, but the fascinating thing is that we all talk about ego a lot. Oh, he's very egotistical, or people told me I'm egotistical and things like that. But being like that, I think, is different to having free will or having independence. Because I think a lot of people, when you say, oh, you're very egotistical, they say, oh, am I? I didn't know that. They're quite surprised, or they don't know they're doing it. So it's almost like they're running a program, but they're not aware what the program is. But I've noticed for myself that trying to unhook from that program and be like an independent person, what that does for me is, like, now I can say, like, me as this person, like David or Dave, what would I do in this situation? Not because of what I should do or what I belong to or what I'm programmed to do, but this person, what should I do? And only if I'm separated from all the programs, or try to be separated from them, can I actually come at the world from me and say, what would I do? Otherwise, I'm just following something in a way. I'm just following a program.
I'm trying to follow what you're saying. I think I lost you.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that ego is different from free will.
But how did that come up from from what we were just talking about? I must have gotten lost. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. Back for a second. We were talking about how people wanting to be, in a way, wanting other people to be like them. Like when we have a conversation with someone, we try to get people to side with us or to agree with us, to kind of, and then we compared that to the analogy of like a black hole that sucks everything in and wants to make it like itself, So and then you went to ego, or what we call the ego.
Yeah.
And then you went to free will, and that's where I got lost.
Okay. It's hard to. It's maybe I'm not very good at explaining, because it's like I was just thinking that a lot of people think that egotistical people want it like their way, sort of thing, something like that. But maybe it's not their way. It's just they're just doing what they're programmed to do. Like, I would like to do it this way just because that's the way I was born. That's the way I am. But I think I'm learning gradually it's not the same way as having free will. Because if I have free will, I won't do it something because this is the way my parents did it, or try and do the opposite to my parents, or this is because the way we do it here, or whatever. It'll be something completely fresh, completely new, like completely independent. And if I do that, then what I find is I have to think, what is the best thing for, like, now I can think of what is the best thing in this situation, and really, so it's the first time in my life I've felt like morally responsible. Right? It allows me to be morally responsible. I think, what is the best thing? It could be something I've never done before, or opposite of what I normally do, but it could be what I think is right in this moment. Yeah. So it takes evaluation. It takes to think, what is best, and not just rushing into something or doing what I normally do or something like that. So it's only crept up in me in the last year, I think. But I've got this.
Are you talking about in relation to what we were just talking about?
Well, yeah, because I think we might have to cut this whole part out because it's too confusing. But it's like
Confused. I'm confused. I don't know about.
okay, we can stop.
we
We can stop. We can go back to black holes. We can cut this part out.
totally lost. It could be me, but I'm just lost. I'm trying to understand the relation to one. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's go back to our tendency as humans. Okay, our tendency to want people to side with us in a way, or to agree with us. And when someone would do something differently or think differently about something, then we would, we would see them as being wrong. So we talk.
Yeah.
So we just, if we could just sit on that one just for a moment,
Yeah.
because, and then we can talk about how do we do that, and has something changed in us from us doing things in that way, because it's a very natural tendency that I think you've had, I've had,
Yeah.
I think it's a very natural, it's a very human tendency to have. Just even keeping the ego out of it for a moment, we could just, you and I, talk for a moment about, like, how have we actually changed that? Have we? And what do we do now? When we have a conversation with someone and they have a different opinion than us, or they see something differently, how have we changed our way of interacting with them so that they don't become an opponent or someone that's disagreeing with us?
Yeah.
So it doesn't create like negativity and judgment in us, like,
Yeah.
do you feel that that's something that's changed in you in the past years?
It's changed in the last year. Yeah.
Do you know, actually, like, is it tangible to you? Would you be able to just maybe briefly explain how, like, what are some of the things that have helped that change in you?
Wow, that's a really hard question. I'm trying to think. How did it happen?
It can just be, not, of course, because of course, I mean, there's just so many things that contribute to our change. But if you could maybe pinpoint a few things that you feel gradually helped you along the way to adjust your way of interacting.
I think with me, it's like the knowledge helped me. I don't know why, but I got interested in coherence. I got interested in putting the relationship first with people, the friendship, and not what I think about things. You've asked a really difficult, great question, but I'm not sure I can answer it. How did that flip happen?
Well,
I'm not sure. And so what happens now is, for instance, my girlfriend, she has some ideas which are so opposed to me, and I just say, wow, that's an amazing idea, and I just don't try and convince her of my idea. I just like, we just have a laugh that we're so different about some of the ideas. We just laugh about it, and we don't. But the beautiful thing about her is that if she's saying something which is sort of fact-based, if I introduce some new facts, she might say, wow, I never heard of that. And she's very flexible. She says, okay. And since I've known her in the last 9 months, she's changed some of her ideas just because I introduced some new information which she wasn't aware of. And she's done the same for me. She's very keen on organic, biodynamic food, like very well-grown food. And I wasn't before.
yeah.
I didn't, McDonald's was fine for me. But I've got very interested, and what I've noticed is that when we have a meal with like ingredients which are fantastic, they could be vegetables or meat, it's really fantastic ingredients, from very pure sources, very good farms that grow things really well. My God, the flavors are so amazing. You don't need so much sauce and things. Sometimes it's like you have the vegetables and the lamb or something, you go, my God, this is so tasty, and it feels so much better. So she introduced that to me, because I was pretty pretty strong in my view that, it wasn't so much about what were the ingredients, it was your attitude when you're eating. Like, if you're having fun, that was the main thing.
Yeah.
And I even told her about that. But now she's introduced this to me, and it's like, wow, we're having great time now cooking because of the ingredients, and having fun sourcing the ingredients and talking about them, things like that. So that change has just washed over me, like maybe through experience, but I think it's like there's got to be some opening. It's such a great question you asked, but like for me, it's like something opened. Like someone has an idea, you've got to be open to it.
Yeah.
But I think also that how can I put it? Whew. This is going to sound a bit weird, but these ideas that say, like, if there are two people together, and if you believe in unity, if you believe we're all from the one source, there aren't actually two people there. There's actually only one person there. But it's like, but different parts are in different people, something like that. So if you're with a friend, it's really you, So basically,
it's an aspect of you.
It's an aspect of you. There are all different ways of looking.
What the hell is he talking about?
I know. It's too. I don't know. So like we all come from one source. So like we're all, as you say, we're all different aspects.
Sauce, SAUCE.
Yeah. Maybe tomato sauce. We're all from tomato sauce. We're all from SOURCE. from one source. That's what some people think.
Sometimes when you say source, it really sounds like sauce, and I'm like, well, that makes sense too, that we all come from one sauce.
Well, I don't like tomato sauce.
Can be cream.
Okay. So we came from one beginning or something. So we're all parts of that.
Yeah.
So if someone, this is interesting. So, for instance, if someone asks me a question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I give an answer. So, did they ask the question, or am I part of them asking the question? Am I part of it? Because we have a shared consciousness.
Oh boy. Somebody's going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I've started to think that. So if people got different ideas, I don't see them as so different now. I think, okay, maybe that's something. It's actually an idea I've got myself, but it's never surfaced. So they've helped dig it out of me, basically. So I'm not seeing it as an opposite thing to me now. I'm seeing as, okay, that might be something, it's happened, this person said this, so I was supposed to hear that, Maybe it's something I wanted to know all my life, but I never realized it until now. There's not against me.
That makes a difference, yeah. Sorry, someone's talking out there. Yeah, and I guess maybe that, like you said, maybe it comes from so many different things that have evolved, by us wanting to change, having the heart to want to change our ways and be more at one with other people, right? So it's not really one thing. It's just kind of like a step-by-step process of wanting to feel closer with people and less separate, that we start to feel that, right? In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that maybe evolves over time. And having an intention also is important, because you kind of have to have a feeling of wanting to be more at one with people.
Do you have that feeling?
Huh?
Do you have that feeling? Can I ask you?
Yeah. I would say it's really been evolving more and more, that I just feel so at one with other people, like, and it's interesting, the more different a person is from me, the closer I feel to them now.
Can you explain why?
it's interesting. The word that comes to my mind is suffering. I feel that every time I go through a period of suffering, like a very profound moment or period of suffering where I just feel like I'm in a really dark place, where life just feels, everything just feels very dense and very heavy. And it's almost like I want to get out of my skin. It's almost unbearable. And I'm somehow get to the other side of that feeling. Sometimes it lasts a day. Sometimes it lasts 2 days, 3 days, a week. Usually it doesn't go past a week, 10 days now. Before it used to last months. And it was very difficult to get out of it. But now I'd say it'll last a few days to a few weeks. But when I come out of that, I just feel so at one with everything. And so when I meet someone who's just so different from me or is experiencing very difficult things, I just see myself in them. It doesn't even matter that their experience is different from mine. I can feel the depth of what they're going through. Yesterday I walked out of the gym, and right next to the gym where I work out or I do strength training, there are a lot of people who are houseless, that are living on the street. And just to give a context of the area, and I walked out, and right next door to the workout place is a store that sells a lot of like uniforms for nurses and just random things, a lot of clothes for kids and adults, uniforms, and then just little random things. And so I walk out of the workout place, and I walk past a guy who I've seen on the street many times. I can't tell if he's houseless or not. He looks a little bit like he is, and sometimes he looks pretty normal, and sometimes he looks a little strung out. And he looks at me in the eyes, and he goes, "Can you buy me that? Can you buy me that?" And he points at the window of the store. And I look down to see what he's pointing at, and it's these little toy cars. And he's, maybe in his, I don't know, maybe late 40s or something, late 40s. And then he points at the car, and he looks back at me. I said, the little toy car, is that what you want? And he goes, yeah, I want that one. I want that, the Ferrari. And I go, I think that's a fire truck. And he goes, yeah, that's the one. I want it. Can you buy it for me? And he kept saying, can you buy it for me? And I said, yeah, sure. Let's go in there. Let's go take a look. So we go in there. And the woman who works in the store behind the cash register, she's looking at him, and then she looks at me, and she goes like this. She goes. And so, okay. So I had to kind of make a decision. I was like, I'm just going to go with this. I'm just going to see what happens. So we go up to the counter, and those toy cars are also at the cash register. So he goes up and he picks one up, and he goes, this is the one I want. And so she looks at me, and she says, he knows he shouldn't be in here. The security guy is here. He's already asked him to leave. And while this is happening, he keeps looking at me, and he goes, can I have this car? Can you buy me this car? So I look at her and I go, can I buy him? Is it okay if I buy this little toy car for him? And she goes, if you want to, and I go, and it was a little chaotic, because while she's kind of looking at me saying no, and then she's like, I told you the security guy is going to ask you to leave again. And the guy keeps asking if he can get the car. So it's a little chaotic. And I wanted to get him the car, because I kind of felt, I just had this feeling of like, this is what's going to make him happy right now. And I want to make this guy happy. He looks like he's going through a really hard time right now. And I want to get him this car, but I wanted to be respectful to the business owner also.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation, but And then finally she calmed down, and I said, okay, I'd like to buy him the car if that's okay. And she goes, okay, if that's what you want. So while we're standing there and she takes my card, and I and he won't look at me in the eyes, and I go, hey, what's your name, by the way? And he goes, Arthur. And he doesn't look at me. And I go, oh, Arturo, your name's Arturo. And he it's almost like he came out of a spell, and he looked at me and he goes, yeah, how'd you know? I go, well, you just told me your name's Arthur. And he goes, yeah. So he gets the car, and he goes, okay. Oh, wow. And he walks out, and he just leaves. And I stayed for a while. The business owner, we started talking, and she goes, yeah, she says he's a really nice guy, and sometimes he's like super straight, like his mind is really clear, and we have great conversations, but she says sometimes he comes in and he's just not doing well. And she goes, I've met his family, they've been in here, his sister's been in here, different people from his family, and she's like, yeah, sometimes we heard that sometimes he buys the cars and he burns them and sniffs them because the plastic, it gets you high. So she says, sometimes we just want to be careful because we're worried about him. And I said, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. And she goes, yeah, but sometimes he just plays with the cars and he sets them on fire just to have fun.
Yeah.
But the point of this story is that, I mean, if someone looked at my story and this guy's story side by side, they'd be like, you guys have nothing in common. But to be honest, I felt like I had everything in common with this guy. It was the weirdest thing. I just felt he was a human being, and there was something, and that thing was going to make him happy. Whatever it was going to make him happy. And that's just like me. I go to a coffee shop and I want to have a coffee because I feel like it's going to make me happy. So what's the freaking difference between me and this guy,
So I'm getting I want to ask you a question because actually I had a chat with ChatGPT recently about like what is beauty, and like I think I mentioned it to you, like I might see different people are beautiful or things like that, and I'm thinking to myself, that's strange. Like, why do I see, it could be like a thin person, like a really big person, old, young. For me, all sorts of people can seem like beautiful to me. And I was thinking, why is this? And then I started to realize it's not about the outside. I think it's the outside of the person, like their skin or their body shape or something like that. But I started to realize I'm probably just resonating with what's inside them.
Mm. Yeah.
It's who they are, their thinking, their mindsets, their vibration, their resonance. It's not about what's on the outside of the person. So it's like, I just started thinking about this. It's like, wow, that explains why I see so many different people that, like, I'm attracted to, or want to, hang out with them or something like that, or think they're beautiful. So it makes, if I think about that, it makes me understand what you're saying. Is there something inside this guy that you resonate with? And it could be, as you say, his suffering or the fact he wants to be happy is something you want as well. So you resonate with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, because I was thinking, like, when you said you were suffering for a few days, like, do you know how do you come out of it? Or how did you come out of the last time?
I wish I had one straightforward answer, but there isn't. I think this is kind of what I explained to a friend the other day. I go through it, and I try not to oppose it. I try not to find a quick fix to get out of it. I tell myself in a way now that when I go through those moments, I kind of feel like maybe it helps me to feel more at one. To be honest with you, there is a part of me that wants to say, well, it really sucks, and it sucks to suffer like that, and I don't really need to suffer because there's a lot of things I could try or I could be doing that could get me out of it quicker. But I'm not doing those things, so there's got to be a reason why I go through it. And it just really, I just feel so much more at one with everything when I come out of it. And I feel like there's only good that comes from that, because when I feel at one with everything and at one with everyone, it almost gives me the ability to empathize with anyone going through any situation. It just gives me a feeling of empathy that I feel is so necessary in today's world. It is so easy to take sides today. It would be so easy to take sides and for me to say, I hate Trump, or I hate this person, or I hate this belief, or this is not helping the world right now. AI is going to take over. Just, there's like a million things right now that as a human being, we would be, we could get a lot of allies to side with us. Let's just put it that way. On one side or the other. And for me, that is not going to ultimately bring peace to this world. It won't. It just won't. So of course it's important for us to have discernment, but it is so crucial for us to also be able to see the two sides of any story. It is so important if we are going to really even understand what peace means. If you do not know how to empathize with both sides of a story, then it is impossible to reach what we call peace. I really believe that in my heart of hearts. I could be the most naive person in the world, and you can call me anything you want. It doesn't matter. But this is just my truth. My truth is that we need to be able to understand both sides.
Sounds like a definition of peace.
Well, not to many people. I know many people whose definition of peace is if Trump was not in office, we would have peace in the world. If Israel wasn't bombing Palestine, we would have peace. There's just like there are so many things happening in the world. If Russia would back off from Ukraine, we would have peace in the world. If there wasn't famine in all of these countries around the world, that we would have peace in the world. If billionaires were giving their money to useful causes, to helping hunger, we would have peace in the world.
Okay.